Hello, welcome back. I am Chico West. I am the actual no filter, and
I am Shannon West, and I am the filter.
Yes, we are glad to be back. Today is January 14th, Monday. Once again, we're coming back to you on our second of a two-part series on codependency.
Yes, because and last week I was starting to tank because I got the illness that everybody seems to have gotten around town, and I thought I had made it through the holidays, and I tanked. But I'm back.
But you do look a lot better today.
Yes,
you have a little more color in you, and maybe a little more spunk today.
Yes.
Do you have the spunk today?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Well, I'm excited about that. You know, the great thing about this podcast that we're doing, we're getting some questions, and I love the questions. I like that this series was really a two-part series because we really exposed codependency. You know what codependency is. But
a little bit.
Yeah, and this, I mean,
personally,
we could go a lot longer on it. You know, I appreciate your vulnerability and getting personal about that.
And so, before we dive into the questions, I just wanted to make some timeline, corrections from last week. Okay, so
timelines. What do you mean by timelines?
Timelines.
Yes, I know that wasn't correct on my part.
So I started doing, some of the questions have to do with the work that I've done on codependency.
Yeah, and I thought I was going to ask those questions.
You are, but I wanted to talk about when I started kind of some of my work was 10 years ago when because I talked about my illness and my hospital stay last week. That was 3 years ago.
You are correct. 3 years ago.
It was 3 years ago. And you kept insisting it was 5, but it was 3. I was right, and I needed to point that out because I didn't start the work 3 years ago. I just had some additional revelations about my codependency.
Yes.
3 years ago. But
I
my diagnosis was 10 years ago or over that now. But
I think you even started before that, really starting to do some work on codependency. I would challenge that because I think you did do some work for a long time. Way before that.
Well, okay, maybe so. Maybe you could see that. But for me to really have some aha moments and be able to, go into battle every day, battling against it, I think it was, about 10 years.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'll give you that. But let's get into some of the questions. This person, Blair, she asked me, some great questions. What did Shannon do? She goes, okay, Shannon didn't do Al-Anon, but what are some things that Shannon did begin to do? I know some of those answers, but I'm curious what those answers are for you.
Okay, so when I first was sick, physically ill, and I thought,
10 years ago.
Yes, 10 years ago. I thought, I've got to...
I might repeat that several times.
Yes, that's fine. 10 years ago. I thought, I have got to figure out a way to take care of myself because now I'm physically sick and diagnosed.
Okay, so let's pause for a second.
Okay.
Because here's the deal. Self-care is essential with all of us. But with people that struggle with codependency... They see self-care and they almost...
It's selfish.
Yes. And there's a big difference between self-care and selfish. And we'll answer some of those things today. But I just wanted to pause and get y'all to really think about that. And hopefully we do answer that. So I'm reminding you, Shannon.
I did think that self-care was selfish.
Yes.
I did think that.
But when you were sick, you go, you know what? I do need to take care of myself. Enough's enough.
Yes,
Is that fair to say?
Yes, because I wanted to be there for my family,
Yes.
For you and the kids and everyone else. So I decided on my own because, I don't know, as a female or my personality type, which we can go into that, another time about personality types, but I'm stubborn. I get that. I'm type A. I'm very organized.
She's a firstborn.
I'm a firstborn. So are you, which doesn't explain your personality. But I didn't like you labeling me a codependent. So that was a source of resentment and anger towards you when you would call, you're just a codependent. You're just a codependent. Nobody likes to be labeled. But I, on my own, did some research on the word codependency, and then I found a book called Boundaries by Cloud and Townsend.
Yes, Henry Cloud and John Townsend. A couple little sidebar about those two guys. They actually went to SMU back in the 70s.
Oh, okay.
And now they have.
I don't remember that.
They have a good practice out in California, and they've done a lot of research on this.
And I knew that I needed to figure out how to have boundaries in my life, and so I started with that. And they have a workbook that goes with it.
And something about the book that I like. They give they'll give you an illustration that talks about kind of a synopsis. You get a picture. They bring you in where maybe you can identify with this person's struggle or that.
Right. And so I started doing a lot of reading on that, and then journaling. Was a huge thing. I love a journal. I love a good journal, which is, we can talk about all my favorite notebooks, at some point. But I started to journal. I started to write down things that,
But also what else I saw is you really got involved in CBS and stuff like that.
No, I was going to get there. And so then, as I realized that I didn't have boundaries in certain, areas of my life, I wasn't necessarily codependent on my family like you and the boys, but I didn't have good boundaries with you all. And so...
And you know what? To be fair, I took advantage of that.
Yes, you didn't like it when I was Codependent No More. Which was the second book that I picked up, Codependency No More, right? That's what it's called?
It's Codependent No More. It's by Melody Beatty.
Melody Beatty, yes. Codependent No More, Melody Beatty. And a lot of that book was about living with an addict, an alcoholic, spouse or parent. And so at first, when I first was diving into that book, I was thinking, oh, I'm not going to really relate to this because you've always been, I've known you only as a sober man. And so I thought this is not going to be relatable to me, which is what I felt about the Al-Anon meetings also. But turns out that book was awesome.
Yes.
And so I think...
And I've been using that book a lot in my private practice and, working with families. I believe in that book. I believe in both books big time.
Yes, I think people have to give it a chance because I guess codependency has been recognized more along the spectrum of addiction and Al-Anon and things like that, maybe, up until,
Yeah, for a long time, it really came about in the 80s, that term, codependency. Right. But before we even came up with the term codependency, with the alcoholic and the drug addict, I'm gonna make a little diagram, real quick. You have the alcoholic.
You need your dry erase board.
I know, and then we have the person married to the alcoholic. Real quick. You have the alcoholic, and then the person married to the alcoholic is the codependent. But before that was ever there, we called this person the co-addict. Codependent sounds a lot better than co-addict.
Okay, right. Okay, so exactly.
And so that's where it came about. But here's the deal is, you start to step back and look, you don't even have to have alcoholism in your family or addiction.
Exactly. So that's the point that I got to. But then I also realized that, I've always been a very spiritual person, and that is a huge, Jesus is number one in my life and in my direction in my life, and my prayer life is very, as you know, it's not so open and in the out in the open.
No, but I would say you are a woman of faith. we definitely have different spiritual gifts. I'm kind of out there, but
Right.
man, your spiritual gift of faith is incredible.
But so I knew for self-care that I had an individual, I guess, faith and prayer life and relationship with God that was secure and was
Yes.
okay. But I needed to, in order to self-care, I got involved in CBS Community Bible Study, which is just a group Bible study, and I became a leader because I wanted that prayer time, that accountability where you could share prayer requests, or you didn't have to, but you were just in, community prayer. And
Well, and I think as you were going through that journey, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they asked you to be that leader because you went in there and you were vulnerable. You were in your small group after doing the study and then opening up and sharing prayer life.
Well-
Is that you found that sense of community with older women and younger women
yes,
alike.
well, and possibly because Community Bible Study is set up to where they want you to, they want to make the Bible relevant to your life, and so you have application. And so
Yes.
I found great growth and self-care in that application for life. But so then applying the boundaries, applying the codependent no more, applying the biblical, standards that I have for me, myself, and the spiritual walk that I want, applying all of those led to a life of freedom in self-care.
Yes.
And,
Big time.
you at Casa Colina, you equip men for a lifetime of freedom in sobriety.
Yes.
And I needed,
and their families.
and yes, and their families. And I didn't need freedom from sobriety. I needed freedom from codependency, or just, I needed
Yes,
to learn.
but
yeah.
and if we go through that, it's like what you're saying about our mission statement at CASA, to equip men and their families for a lifetime of freedom in sobriety. I think sobriety is just, there's that acronym for sober, son of a bitch, everything's real.
Yes, yes.
And if you get so consumed in, if you're drinking or using, but if you're in the codependency, you get so consumed in taking care of everybody else away from taking care of yourself.
Yes.
And so all of a sudden when you have self-care, it's like, wow, okay, everything's real. I don't need to take on everybody else's stuff or
Yeah.
do everybody else's stuff. And I can begin to say no.
Yes. Well, and I think that where my personality comes in too is that, like I said before, I didn't really struggle with being codependent on you or the kids, but it was mainly other people in my life. I mean, anyone else around me could have access to my codependency, but different personality types. Like I have friends that are not codependent on everyone around them, but they are codependent on their family.
Oh, yes.
Specifically their kids, because we
might call that a helicopter parenting.
well, but no, I don't know that anybody knows that they're a helicopter parent, and they might. I'm just challenging you on that, because the people that I am thinking of that are codependent on their kids aren't really helicopter parents, but they just don't. Their personality is the type that when we watch this, we listen to this Enneagram,
Yeah.
podcast or whatever, they called it, this certain personality type has pre-traumatic stress disorder.
Yes.
Like they are stressing out about what is going to happen, and
What we might call in the addiction realm is future tripping.
yes, future tripping.
Yes.
And so
about
they want
things that are unknown.
So the codependent part is that they want to fix that. They want to make the road. They want to go before their kids and make the road clear for them, so that when they come up behind them, it's a golden brick road instead of the messy.
But here's
of
the
life.
deal: is like we all have messes in our life, and I think some of those people we know and stuff like that, we all have messes. I mean, that's where Shannon and I are here today saying, hey, we struggle with codependency. I'm in recovery from addiction.
Yes.
I mean, those things happen, but a lot of our stuff that we bring in is from our family stuff.
Well, and that was the point that I was I was trying to get there. I know
Okay.
sometimes it takes me a while to get places.
Yeah,
but
I'm just helping. Maybe
I
I'm being
know-
codependent.
I am not. See, that is not an example of me being codependent. It's
I
just
said
not.
maybe I am being codependent.
Oh, I think you are. I think you're trying to
Yes.
rescue me.
I'm trying to maybe rescue
just-
you. That's what I
oh,
said.
okay.
You know, wow.
Oh, my
She's a little
gosh.
sensitive today.
I started feling better, and boy,
Boy,
down.
it is coming
he
out
wants to get me sick
sideways.
again. He's going to sneeze on me later.
Yeah.
So
You
what I was
lost your-
saying was no, the golden brick road, that you want for your kid. It's because maybe you're thinking about your upbringing, how things weren't as smooth as you would have liked them to have been, and you made a promise to yourself when you were a little girl or a little boy that your family was not going to be that way. You were not going to allow those things to happen, and waiting for the other shoe to drop, and
And
that's not taking care of yourself. You know what I'm saying?
at all. But here's the deal: is like the great thing is, let's pause for a second and look at us. Okay, we've been married 23 years. We're coming up on 27 years of knowing each other.
Yes.
This May. I mean, a long time coming up on those kind of things. The deal is, we brought our stuff from how we were raised by our parents. Their parents brought their stuff.
Right.
And then we come together, and so each family has their own stuff that they bring to the table that have nothing to do with the marriage.
Well, right, like the compliments. You want to talk
Oh
about that?
my goodness! And so that was a good question. Same question Blair asked is, why does has Shannon figured out, is she all right with compliments? What was the reason? What did she tell herself?
Well, and I don't know that I'd ever been asked that question to think about it. I just knew that I didn't take compliments very well, and I think that, I don't think that my mom or my dad take compliments very well.
No, I would agree.
They're both very talented people in their own right and in what they do, but I don't think that they ever took compliments very well, and so. I don't want to say, because I know they'll be listening, but I don't want to say that they didn't compliment me, because that's not the case.
No, they are your biggest cheerleader.
But
you weren't modeled how to take a compliment. I mean, your parents, there are kids' biggest cheerleaders too. They are awesome, but they don't take compliments well. They don't know how to do that.
Now they'll compliment our kids and bulk up their heads. But there was a fear for me, I think, taking a compliment. There's a fear that I'm not going to measure up to whatever I'm being complimented about. Like,
so kind of like what you were saying about the people that get codependent on their kids. They future trip about the yellow brick road.
Right.
So you have this fear of, you're not going to measure up, that you're future tripping. You can't live in the now.
Yeah, if they're like, oh, you did such a great job on that event or whatever it was, whatever. I'm like, oh yeah, well, whatever. I had a lot of help, and it was not, and I didn't have a lot of help or whatever. I brush off, or, oh, you look really nice today. I don't.
You would discount yourself.
Yes, all the time.
And the deal is, I saw it with a lot of times. If someone gave our kids a compliment to you, you would find their fault.
Well, yes. I would say, if somebody said, oh, that's so great that so-and-so did Travis did this, or
Beck did this.
Yeah, Beck did this or whatever, I would say, oh, well, just wait till next week.
Oh, I like what you just did. You would roll your eyes.
Yes.
You do that. You don't even see that you do that.
I know, I don't.
And there was times in the last 10 years I'd go, Shannon, it's all right to take a compliment.
Yes.
Even compliments from our kids. It's not we're going to puff up their heads, but that's all right.
I know, but then sometimes you can be overly, even though you hate the word proud, like as much as
Okay, we're not going down that road.
Okay.
Yeah. But we will. One day I will tell you the reason why I am not a fan of the word proud.
We need to do an entire episode on proud.
I will do an entire episode on proud.
I'm so encouraged by that.
Okay, but let's get to what we really want to talk about today.
Yes.
Here's some what we'd like to talk about is, we talked about the codependency last week. Shannon gave some good examples and even got vulnerable. I appreciate that. We talked about those things, but what we really want to talk about is, we have this little chart that will, it's going to pop up here in a second. What we're talking about is really two words. Are we responsible for others, or are we responsible to others? And see that those prepositions, it's powerful. If you look at responsible for others is really
Okay, and let's go ahead and say for the people like me.
yes.
Let's go ahead and say for is the negative way to go. Okay, so you don't want to be responsible for someone. Okay, for is
Yeah, it's negative, it's unhealthy, but you know
Unhealthy,
what?
that's the word you
what
use,
what I
right,
was
which
gonna
is
say is not just negative and unhealthy. It's like, man, it's in our culture, it's in our society. We think we need to be responsible for others when our kids are little and stuff like that. We get in there and we do those things. So responsible for
Yes.
others? It's control. And so what happens is, what do I tend to do when I'm responsible for others? And so if I'm getting responsible for my kids, what do I tend to do? I get in there and I fix and I protect and I rescue and I carry their feelings, and I control.
And this says don't listen. I don't listen.
I love that one because I love that. We can listen and see, that's a real hard concept to understand. I can listen to, if my kids come in and I'm being responsible for them, exactly what they're saying, but I don't listen to what's not being said.
Right. Okay.
And so do
yeah,
you understand that? Is like, I don't listen to their emotions and stuff like that.
Right.
Like last week, I love that you said, hey, getting into validating my kids' feelings, that, man, they're going to be fearful. Our kids are going to make mistakes. Other people are going to make mistakes. But I get in there and I don't listen and I don't validate those feelings.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so if I'm doing those things, I start.
If you're carrying their feelings, if you're rescuing them, if you're trying to control, the situation.
Yes.
It's not necessarily controlling them, but it's controlling the situations.
Oh,
it's
big
the
time.
yellow brick road. What did I
Yes.
call it? The golden brick road?
Yeah, I think you said golden
I don't
brick
know.
road.
I like gold better than yellow.
Well.
But whatever, if you're trying to control that road for them, then you're not going to be listening. You're going to be future tripping, thinking, okay, I need to.
I got to do this.
I need to-
But see, what happens? What do I start to feel? You can just touch the screen and it'll open.
Okay, thank you.
No.
It didn't. See, not now.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Okay. What you can do is what I start to feel when I'm doing those things. I
Yes.
feel angry, responsible, lonely, fearful,
Anxious.
anxious. Yes.
Guilty, embarrassed,
Oh yeah, I'm carrying their feelings.
lonely, rageful.
Oh my goodness, all over the place. And so I'm doing those things, I'm feeling that. And what happens? This is when I'm being responsible for. Man, I get into, okay, I am concerned with what? Oh, the solution. Here's what we need to do. Bam, bam, bam. The circumstances, performance, being right. Those things is
Answers. Yeah.
answers, all that. And if I'm doing those things when I'm responsible for fixing, protecting, rescuing, and I'm feeling that, and I'm concerned with solutions, answers, details, performance, I become, the crazy thing is, here's the crazy thing, is I become a manipulator, a controller. And you've heard the word enabler. I don't like that word. I like the word disabler. I'm disabling that person from being responsible for themselves.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, my self-worth goes down.
Okay, right.
I got an example that I've used for 20 years.
Okay.
Okay?
Does it have to do with me?
It does. Yes.
And I had no idea you've been using it for 20 years, I guess.
No, but here's the deal is, the crazy thing is, when I worked in that IOP back in the 90s, it
Yes.
was like 97, 98.
IOP is Intensive Outpatient Program.
Yes. For chemical
dependency, for those of you that don't know what all the acronyms mean, which I had to figure that out. Okay.
Yes.
So he worked for an IOP.
Yeah, so this is early in our marriage. We didn't have kids. I mean, this is 21 years ago. You are teaching in Garland.
Yes.
Okay. You had that kid that was smoking pot, and you knew
No,
he came
you
in
get this wrong. You
Okay,
get this
so
wrong.
tell.
Okay, so I was teaching in a high school in Garland, and I taught
Spanish.
Yes, but will you just let me finish?
Okay,
I
I'm
taught a
trying to
class
speak
that was split. Like they would come to my class and then they would leave and go to lunch, and then they would come back to my class to finish it up after lunch. And so every day after lunch, when this young man would come back in the room, he smelled like cigarettes. I mean, clearly he had been smoking in the boys' room, before he came back into class.
Sammy Hagar?
No, that's not Sammy Hagar. Please don't do that. That is not Sammy Hagar. Okay.
Smoking in the boys' room.
Yeah. So anyway, he would come back in, and I would let it go because, I mean, he was, a kid that, whatever. And I just let it go. I mean, I'm like, he's 17 or 18 and he's smoking in the boys' room, whatever. What am I going to do? But it got to a point to where everyone in the class was like, acting
Enough's
like I was,
enough.
no, they were like, I was getting duped, they were like, oh, Miss West doesn't know anything, and they called me Ms. out there, but they said, Ms. doesn't know what's going on, and I was like, well, yeah, I do.
Okay, and so you came home.
I wrote a referral,
And
when he
then-
came back in, and they came back up to get his backpack,
Okay,
took
now
it back down.
now let me jump in and tell you how I was responsible for. Okay, so you're telling me this story, okay, and you sent him on a referral, and he went down to do that. And then you're telling me this story, and you said you went in between periods to go check on the referral, and that he bowed up.
No, you always get this story wrong. Maybe you've been telling it wrong for 20 years. But
Okay,
so,
can I finish telling
No,
it?
because I'm going to tell the story, and then you can tell.
It has nothing to do with responsible for or too. Can I tell it the way, or no?
the way that it didn't happen.
Okay, why don't you correct me after I finish?
Okay, go ahead. Oh my God, go ahead. I can tell the story, and then you can tell me how I was being responsible for him.
I'm not talking about you. I was talking about me.
No, I know, but can I just tell the story then, and then you can tell me how you were responsible for me?
Okay.
Thank you. So
That
the office came to get his backpack
yes.
out of the class while he was still in the office.
Yes.
Because they wanted to search it for cigarettes.
Yes.
Okay, well, they took it and they searched it and they found a switchblade. And then the school officer came in and found out that he was on a gang watch list.
Okay.
Okay, so they came back
that
up to
still
my
has-
room and they said he is going to be suspended for 2 weeks. And I said, oh, okay, that's not good, whatever. And then I was alone in my classroom and he came back in after 2 weeks. And I faced him alone in my classroom. But he was very nice. He said, Miss, that was the best thing you've done. I'm moving to Chicago.
Okay, but that has nothing to do with the story I've been telling for
Okay,
20
what?
plus years. I was going to talk about me being responsible for you instead of to you.
Okay, go ahead. So then that's the story.
Okay, but the story was you were telling me at your school experience after work,
Yes.
and telling me that he's gang and stuff like that, and I stopped you. I stopped listening. I wasn't listening to you. I got into, fixing and protecting you, and I go, hey, I know what we can do. We're going to get Chris, who worked with me, who's that big 6'4" guy, to come in and pretend to be me and scare the crap out of all those kids. And you looked at me and go, let me finish the story.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. I don't need all the details. I got in there because my fear was that, you were going to be in harm and I needed to come in and protect you.
Well, I was scared too. I mean,
But you said, wait a minute. Remember that vice principal? He said,
Yes,
don't
yes.
worry. He's a big man.
Yes.
You have nothing to worry about. But I didn't allow you to finish that story. That's what I was trying to say.
okay.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. See?
We're good.
She wants to correct me all the time.
No, that's my story, and you tell it way wrong.
I'm not telling your story. I'm telling my story from your story.
Okay.
Okay.
Kevin, help.
But hey, this.
So both stories are correct, though? I mean, that's
Yes,
okay.
that is the deal. Both stories are correct.
I don't understand if the details of, anyway. let's go.
Okay, let's go on to responsible two.
Yes, responsible two.
Responsible
This is
two
what you're
is
supposed to do.
care. Okay, that is really caring. It's that real different preposition right there. But if I am responsible to others, I'll show empathy. I'll share. I'll encourage. I'll confront. I'll level, and I'll listen. Okay, now here's a great story about when Travis was 4 years old.
Okay.
I didn't have to protect him or rescue him. Okay. The quick of it was we were at our first house. Everybody on the block owned their house except the house next door was rented. And these people were renting it, and they were putting sheets up in as blinds, and that bugged me. And then the mom had 3 kids.
Try to have a filter.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Dude,
I mean,
I don't remember her name.
I know.
But
not her name, just the way you tell the story.
But here's the deal. It just bugged me. But she also told me that, she was always telling us how to parent Travis, okay, which bugged me as well.
Well, yeah.
She had 3 kids, one year older than Travis, 2 years, and about 4 years.
Yes.
And they were kind of sweet kids, but they couldn't leave their property. And you always had snacks and stuff like that.
Yes, and they would send Travis
to go get all our snacks and eat that. I come home.
Go get your snacks because they're sugary and we aren't allowed. So go get your snacks.
And so here's the deal. But she was always telling us what we needed to do because she
would say Travis would take his Power Ranger sword over there or whatever, and she would say, we don't allow weapons on our property. Everything was about their property, and we don't allow weapons on our property. So.
And you should do this, and you should do that. She should it all over us all the time.
It drove Chico crazy. Yes.
Oh, and so, but here's the good thing is I was at this place that day to being responsible to him instead of for him.
Yeah.
And you're inside cooking, and Beck is an infant, and I come in and Travis is crying, and I go, "What's up, son?" And he starts telling me the story how they were mean. And see, the natural instinct, the parent in me wanted to go over there and really tell her how her kids were wrong. But the deal is I paused. And I listened to what he said. I mean, I had evidence now. And what Travis was upset about was they were being kids. I'm not even faulting those little kids, but they were teasing him and saying they were going to call the police on him because he wasn't bringing over the snacks and stuff like that. I mean, it was just, it was crazy stuff. And so what I did is, man, I showed empathy. I shared, I encouraged, I confronted, I leveled, and I listened. See, I listened to him because what he was saying was, man, can the police come get me? And I asked him curious questions.
That was what upset him the most. Was like,
yes.
Am I really getting? He didn't really care about the kids.
No, but he was and we'd been trying to get him to stop playing with him. And the more we did that, he played with them more. But the deal is, I go, you think Mom and I would let the police come get you? I got curious with him. I shared with him how I had friends that were mean to me and how that hurt my feelings. And I got curious with him, and I go, Travis, what do you want to do? Well, I want to go tell him that's not nice, and they're not telling the truth. And I looked at him, and I go, man, that's a great idea. He came up with it with a little coaching on my end. But then I go, you want to do that? I go, why don't you do that? He goes, will you come with me? And I looked at him, and I said, hey, I'll sit here on the porch. I believe in you. And he went over there and told him. And he played with them a little longer. But the deal is we lived there another 6 months, and he stopped playing with them. He saw that, they were just older and teased him. But see, I got into being responsible to him instead of for him.
Right.
And so, man, my feelings, I felt free, aware, congruent. Has that chart even showed up on the webcast?
Yeah,
All right, so we're good with that. But then the deal is, what do I get concerned with when I'm being responsible to? Relating person to person, not the situation. The other thing is, it's crazy, like with this 4-year-old. I believe if I just share myself, the other person has enough to make it. And I don't become the manipulator.
Or the one with the answers, or the solution.
I don't become controlling.
Right.
I'm just sharing my experience. You know, and the deal is, what I do become is I become a helper, a guide, a friend.
Yeah, and so I'm glad you said that, because see, on the on the chart it's manipulator, controller, disabler, but
On
and then
the four
on the
side.
4 side, and then on the responsible too is a helper, guide, friend, spouse, parent, whatever. That's where the work comes in, though, to get out of those patterns where you think you are helping. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, big time.
When you're being responsible for, you don't necessarily see it as control. I didn't see my codependency or my helping as control, because
Well, and here's the deal: is I like that. It's like, it's not just denial, but I think sometimes we get in. I'm going to use a word. We're delusional. We think we're actually helping when actually we're not.
right.
So in a way, we get a little delusional, thinking that we're the source. And so
Yes.
and we fool ourselves.
Yes.
And so the deal is, what's really going on, if you go back to our first episode, we talk about those feelings. Those feelings really are driving a lot of it. We're fearful if we don't step in and help them out.
Right.
We're fearful if, I think we're driven by a lot of fear. If I don't do this, they're going to think this about me. I'm fearful if I do take a compliment, they're going to think I'm conceited or cocky.
Yeah.
So those feelings, the more we can really recognize, man, what is driving us, a lot of times it's those feelings.
Right.
So
yeah.
that's the crazy thing. Man, we love, and we might come back to this episode and really expound on it more and give you some more resources.
Well, give us questions too, because sometimes we don't even know, where we're going, like last week, and then we got these questions about,
what you do,
what I do,
and stuff like that.
Things like that, and
and it's a process, and
Yes.
that's what I like, trusting the process and stuff like that. So we're going to, man, we're loving. Are you liking this, Shannon?
Yeah,
Are you
yeah,
liking
no, yes.
our deal?
Yes.
It's like, and if you have some ideas for different topics, man, we'll do research. Maybe we'll know.
we're gonna bring in some guests too,
Oh, yes.
so we can.
Yeah, I think next week
Yeah.
we might have a couple women, so I'm gonna feel a little outnumbered. That's
needs
kind of
that.
crazy.
That's-
So
let's
until
do that.
next time. Thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
love it out here at Filter Optional. And don't should on anybody today.